Hi guys, Anthony here. I want to talk about the subject of narratives and feedback loops. The idea of we have records, CDs that keep replaying in our lives often, situations with different people, different settings. Maybe it is with relationships that keep ending in the same way. Maybe it's this idea of how trying to be more fit, more healthy, and always ending in bad dietary cycles, or even with money, always end up in the same cycle of never having enough. A lot of these manifestations are first internal problems before becoming external. And it's like a CD, and we keep replaying the same sound, more often programmed by people around us, voices of authority or parents, school. And I want to use this example that I heard in a leadership summit that I went to in 2024, where it talked about this idea of narratives that we have. And it's a study on luck that was done, where a psychologist decided to take people for a 10-year long study where he tested many different parameters to see how much did luck have to do with people's life experiences. And he took people who considered themselves unlucky and people who considered themselves lucky. And one of the tests they did is they made them read a journal, and he gave them tasks. And the goal was to look at the journal and count the amount of pages that there were in the journal in total. And the thing that happened is this: the group that considered themselves lucky ended up finishing in a shorter amount of time, within 30 seconds, and the group that considered themselves unlucky, they ended up taking an average 2 minutes and more. Because what happened is, on the first few pages, there was written in big print, taking almost half the pages, saying, "Stop counting. There are X amount of images in this book, in this journal." Most of the lucky people actually ended up seeing it, and the unlucky people, they somehow missed it. And what was exemplified here in this example is almost that the perception that we have of ourselves actually affects our vision in a sense, our ability to see opportunities. Our brain has this bias that kind of hides our vision from any path that could actually change the narrative. It's almost like this narrative wants to keep repeating itself. It wants to keep confirming itself, a cognitive bias. This is what the test exemplified. That the very perception that we have of ourselves actually impacts our ability to perceive opportunities to change our state of life. And there are other factors that make people more lucky and unlucky. Basically, the ability to change our perception of bad events that happen to us. This intuitive ability to actually perceive opportunities, one of the markers of the thing that differentiated lucky and unlucky people. Because when we talk about this narrative, this seed that we play, it's being aware of our I ams. I am cursed. I am this. I am always abandoned. I am always the nice guy who finishes last. I am always the person who takes care of everybody, but nobody takes care of me. It reminds me of a scene, I think it was season 4 of Stranger Things.
I used to think I was cursed. Ever since I was 18. There's some letter of induction in the mail. Uncle Sam wants me to go fight some war in the jungle.
Jim Hopper, one of the main characters, one episode he talks about his life story, how it was riddled with tragedy when he was sent to war as a youngster, and he had to manipulate a lot of chemicals, him and many of his friends. And then when they came back to their normal lives after the war, many of his friends had stillborns, children with brain injuries, problems, even though they said that the chemicals that they were manipulating during war were non-lethal, non-problematic. And he talks about how his own daughter was born. There was no problem in the first few years, but then she had cancer and she died. And how his wife left him and he ended up falling to alcohol. And then now, when there was a chance in his new life, he met a new woman. And 11, he had a lot of people who loved him. And then he was recounting at this point of the story, he was not sure if they were actually alive. He knew that they were in danger. And he was saying how much he realized that every people that he brings into his life, he ends up putting them in danger when he asked her to help him in a dangerous situation he was in, which in most cases, somebody who loves you would actually want to help you.
Everyone I love, I hurt. See, I was wrong this whole time. I wasn't cursed. I am the curse.
He had this image of himself where the things that happened to him ended up shifting his internal narrative, and it kept him into this cycle of repeating these things and thinking there's always something bad that happens to the people I love. And this is a pattern where most people, we allow our circumstances to tell us who we are, and we're unaware of this internal system that will guide our life to confirm that narrative, and we're also unaware of how to change it, and we're stuck in that feedback loop. What's interesting about the kingdom of God, as I've been growing in understanding of the kingdom, is there's so much emphasis put on this internal narrative. How, if we want to change the fruit, we need to change the heart, the soul of our heart. How we perceive ourselves, how we perceive others. Listening, being aware of how we talk about ourselves. Because in the end, as this image shows, we always end up living out who we believe ourselves to be. As a man thinketh in his heart, in his deepest, in his depth, in his subconscious, so he is. Then we often use this cycle as a negative cycle. I remember examples of people when I used to help people in inner healing, casting out demons and inner healing. I noticed patterns in people's life where they had cycles of abandonments. There was something that happened to them. A lady who was abandoned by her father, and then had many events of being abandoned by boyfriends, by people at work, and it was this cycle that kept repeating itself, cycles of rejection. And it ended up requiring her to attune to the Spirit of God and allow Him to speak and to change that framework, to speak and to tell her, no, you're loved, you're this, you're healthy. And she even had that cycle of wanting to help people outside of her as if to fill that gap that she never had. And there's also cases where I talk to friends, a close friend of mine that was a positive example, who told me when I was, sharing those information of him, those revelations that I've had, he was telling me that it's funny because when he was young, he had so much an optimistic view of himself and of life, winning in sport, things like this. And it's almost like some things that happened in his life kind of nurtured that. And it made him take a step back and say, oh, this almost this view, this positive vision became tainted, and he could notice the difference. Sometimes it's like this boulder effect, not this snowball effect. It's realizing that we need to stop this snowball effect, this wheel that's been spinning, that's taking a momentum, instead of saying, oh, something bad happened to me, or I did something bad perhaps. As I am bad, I am that bad event. We internalize it, and then the snowball, and something else happens and go and it grows, and we're stuck. We think that we're stuck. We're the person who needs to keep reliving those negative effects to keep them repeating, and we're stuck in the loop. And I've actually got an exercise which resembles the idea of prayer. When you pray, believe that you have already what it is that you're praying for. It's an exercise of self-awareness where you can become aware of the narratives that you have. Basically, you take a piece of paper and you write down. First thing is you write down a positive narrative that you have about your life. Something good happened. Maybe I'm good at a sport. Maybe even a past event. I used to be good at high school and at sports. I have this quality. People tell me that I'm good at that. Something, a positive narrative that when you think about it, associated to yourself, you get good feelings associated to it. And then you write down one negative narrative that you have about your life. And then what you do is you think about the emotions associated to it. You allow those negative emotions to come up, the doubt, the anger, the sadness. And then what you do is you take the second narrative, the negative one, and you turn it into a positive, something that you would hope to see. And then once you write it down, it could be, man, I'm unhealthy, I have bad habits. And then you might imagine yourself, no, I'm super healthy. I go do jogging every morning, or I do this and that. I eat healthy. And then you take the positive emotions associated to the first positive narrative, and then you kind of attach them to that third narrative. And then as you write this, as you imagine yourself being that person, and you write it down, and you just look at it, you read it, and you just start, entering this meditative state where you just rest at peace. And you start imagining like a child and associate this emotion of joy, of peace what you're doing is you're actually rewriting the story, you're rewriting the program. Because the subconscious emotion is a powerful way to rewrite, because we have sometimes events associated with strong emotions, and it's learning how to detach those. It's a changing of the feedback loop, and you're rewriting yourself. And what's going to happen as you start practicing that is you're going to start noticing when you're at rest, because the subconscious works when you're at rest. You're going to start noticing ideas, revelations, maybe steps or action that you can take. Going out and doing a few push-ups, going out to jog, eating more healthy. And it's taking action on those subconscious revelations that you have. This is basically our subconscious saying, okay, we've got a new program. How do we bring it into manifestation? And those ideas are going to come. So that's a way to start changing the narrative that you have in your mind. Again, narrative, noticing the narrative, being self-aware, and then taking action to start implementing it in your life. Because that's faith without action. There's no manifestation, right? Anyways, so if you've ever interested more in those metaphysical ideas and how to implement them in your life, and the idea of spirituality as a whole, and self-improvement, I have a book called Kingdom 101, Identity and Sonship, which I have a lot of those principles and even more in depth explained, and really the idea of spiritual growth and even self-improvement practices that you can start implementing in your life to start and see change. So I also have my Patreon, which I have more information on the idea of imagination, the workshop of imagination, and other metaphysical topics. And that's pretty much all for you guys today. I wish you a good day and hope. Peace.